time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
So good to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes, including Noa Dalzell, who will join us, covers the Celtics for SB Nation, the Celtics blog. Also covers the WNBA. Don't look now, Connecticut Sun off to the hottest start in franchise history. They are 8-0. Everybody talking about the Liberty and the Aces, and it's the Connecticut Sun right now who are 8-0. Still 5 wins off from the hottest start ever in the history of the WNBA. That would be the Minnesota Lynx, who were 13-0 in 2016. Dropping that on you early in the show. All right, a lot to do, as I said. Let's start it out in the NHL. Sam Yarnell is here, ladies and with such a serious look on his face. Why? In the words of the Joker, why so serious?
I mean, Jason, it's time for the finals. It's time to get serious about everything.
No, it's not time.
The NHL...
This is the problem. It's not time for the finals because we got to sit here all week. Just take the week off. Why? What am I going to talk about for that? I'm not going to spend the next 4 days previewing the Stanley Cup Finals. I got to do the same thing with the stupid NBA because they don't start until Thursday. Like, come on, man. It's just, I'm sorry. It's just, and I understand why it happens. You and I had this conversation off air last week. I understand why it happens and scheduling and, you can't account for a series going shorter or longer. But in the case of the NHL, what are they starting, Saturday night? Like, they still could have started the Stanley Cup Finals a little sooner. Like, I don't know, Wednesday? I mean, I don't know. It just feels like a missed opportunity because the NHL's got a lot of momentum, and now it just feels like it hits a brick wall. And then on top of that, you're getting Edmonton and Florida in the Stanley Cup Final, which might be one of the least watched NHL Stanley Cup Finals. Not because they're not great teams, and I don't want to be the party pooper here, Sam, but I'm going to be. You got to wonder how many people are tuning in to watch Florida and Edmonton.
Well, I do think it's interesting because you've got this incredible story in Edmonton because it's the face of the NHL. Connor McDavid, it's the best player in the NHL, hands down, who the league, it seems, has tried really hard to make their face for his entire career since he was the most highly touted prospect in his draft.
This goal last night, which we're showing right now, that was just ridiculous.
If the NHL can't figure out how to get viewers on this series with their biggest player and their best player, they have a serious marketing issue. This is their opportunity to kind of take everything back and build this series up and take the viewership. You've got these beasts of the East versus this team in the West that I don't think a lot of people, obviously the books, didn't expect to beat Dallas and get past Ottinger with the goaltending of Stuart Skinner and the lack of shots they get per game. I mean, heck, they won a Western Conference final game, Jason, in Game 6, where they only shot the puck on net 10 times and it went in twice. The type of chances that this team creates and their hesitancy to shoot the puck, not in a bad way, I guess it would be a positive hesitancy, is really paying dividends. All that said, it's gotten the best player in the league to the Stanley Cup Final, and if the league can't build that up to the viewers and fans around the world, yeah, they've got to reassess some of the things that they're doing.
Well, it's a test for ESPN and, where they've come with their hockey coverage and where they've come with, people wanting to watch their hockey coverage. I agree with you on Connor McDavid as them trying to build him up as the face of the league. The problem is he plays in Edmonton, which means most nights people aren't seeing your games because they're on the West Coast. So you're on late at night and it's Edmonton, and again, 35 years ago, when you had a guy named Wayne Gretzky there, it was a different time in sports. It was a different world that we lived in. Now, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm looking forward to the series. I think it's going to be a fantastic series. Great styles make for great fights. And the two styles of these teams, I think, are going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think it's a long series, but I'll be watching as long as it's on an off night. I'll be watching. They'll get my eyeballs.
I think that you brought up an interesting point earlier in the segment, talking about the gap that they have between obviously the conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals, beginning us having to wait until Saturday at the end of this week for game one of these Stanley Cup finals. It brings a huge conversation of rest versus rust into these things. The Panthers are going to have 7-8 full days off before they play a Stanley Cup Finals game, and now the Oilers will have 5. It brings in an interesting conversation of how these players are going to adapt to not being able to play full 5-on-5 hockey against another full NHL team for that long. And I'm very interested to see what the totals are like in game one, because off the bat, right, that means you expect an under if you bet the rust.
I think hockey, though, the one thing I'll say, hockey versus the NBA, I think the rest is a much better thing in hockey, because you watch these games and the effort required to do what these guys do. I mean, by the end of that game last night, those guys were gassed. They had laid it all out there. So I think it's more of an issue in the NBA. And this is an interesting topic to delve into. Unfortunately, we have 1 minute and 40 seconds left in the segment because of the constrictions of TV. But I think the rest versus rust is more of an issue in the NBA than it is in the NHL. I think these guys could shoot pucks with their eyes closed and put it on net. You know what I mean? Whereas I think the need for accuracy, the margins are much smaller in basketball than I think they probably would be in the NBA.
You mean in the NHL?
I mean in the NHL, yes.
Yeah. I could go either way on this conversation. I really could. Yeah. Because I think, as much as you're right with rebuilding, and especially in hockey being as physical and grueling of a sport that it is, you'd think that the time off gives the players a chance to recoup and rebuild. But, past 3 days in a sport that requires so much fine motor coordination as hockey does in skating and finding edges, it's really hard for me.
Yeah, we'll find out Saturday night, because it's going to be a full week and then some for the Panthers. So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to be a fun series, though. Kenny Albert, by the way, will join us on Wednesday's show. He had the call of the Western Conference Final, so we'll be happy to get his thoughts on Edmonton, who we watched in this postseason. But when we continue with the show, Noa Dalzell. She covers the Celtics for SB Nation. We'll talk Celtics and the NBA Finals next.
Over 13 million Americans were affected by identity theft in 2022, and the threats go way beyond just credit card fraud. Today's identity thieves can use your information in ways that are easy to miss by just monitoring accounts and credit, like opening loans, transferring home titles, even committing crimes.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and it was used for criminal activity.
You can do so much with a social security number that I didn't know could happen. They drained my bank account. It was terrifying.
You're even more vulnerable than you realize. Your information is exposed through online shopping, banking, even corporate data breaches. No wonder there's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats all in one place, like someone trying to use your social security number, open a new loan in your name, or even commit a crime in your name.
There was a big yes button and there was a big no button. I clicked, "That's not me," and LifeLock took it from there.
If you become a victim of identity theft, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will be assigned to your case and work to fix the issue on your behalf.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds, personal expenses, and coverage for lawyers and experts up to $1 million. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. With LifeLock, it's easy to help protect yourself.
I will be with LifeLock forever.
Join the millions of people already protected by LifeLock. And for a limited time, save 25% on your first year with promo code 25TV. All plans include a 60-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-710-7531 or visit lifelock.com/25TV to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
You learn pretty fast that there are no shortcuts in racing or in life. One of my first attempts to deal with my own hair loss was a literal shortcut. Thankfully, my wife found Hair Club. I was shocked the Hair Club had virtually every solution possible. If I had known about Hair Club sooner, I never would have tried any of those overhyped advertised solutions. You can get your own free personalized consultation with a hair loss expert and be on your way to the finish line in no time. Call now.
Save 20% on select solutions using promo code Frankie. Call 800-319-5588.
All right, we keep things moving on this Monday edition of the show. Sam Yarnell will rejoin us in 10 minutes. We'll get into Major League Baseball. I hate to keep talking about the Yankees, but how do you not talk about the Yankees? They're 42-19. Juan Soto's going to make a huge bag, man. All right, let's talk some NBA. Finals will start at some point this week. God, it feels like we're going to be waiting forever for game one of the NBA Finals. Noa Dalzell hangs out with us, does a great job, SB Nation, Celtics blog. Also does a great job covering the WNBA. We'll get to her on that in another segment after this one coming up in about 20 minutes. But Noa, I first of all, thank you for coming on because I know it's a busy week for everybody covering the Celtics and Mavericks in the NBA Finals. I am what you would call a non-believer when it comes to the Celtics. I as great as I think this team is, and I think they're great, they've never felt inevitable to me. And even now, as we sit here on the precipice of the NBA Finals, they still don't feel inevitable to me. Tell somebody like me what I'm missing.
Well, first of all, I would say that no NBA team should ever feel inevitable, and that's the beauty of the NBA and the beauty of basketball. So I think that's the first thing I would say is that, I do believe in this team, as someone who's followed them this season. But I also think that the Mavericks certainly have their own advantages, and I wouldn't be stunned at any outcome, really, in any direction here. But I think the thing with the Celtics team is that a lot is held up against them from previous years. Like, they have this reputation of having not succeeded for a decade or for a really long time, when really I think people are just referring to last season, because before that I don't think there was an expectation for this team to win a championship, and if there was, it wasn't on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's hands, and last season was disappointing, and they still came a game away from the NBA Finals, right? So we see disappointing finishes all the time. The main thing I would say about this team that's different about this iteration from previous seasons is that they've just been so consistent. Like, you don't win, I think they won 76 games, including the playoffs, lost 20. You don't win that many games just because you're talented. Because we're seeing that all across the league, right? There's talented teams everywhere. Last year, I think they did rely on their talent a lot more. And this season, you just see that they brought it every single night. Even the games that they lost, it wasn't because they didn't show up to compete. And in the past, I do think they had challenges with that. So people kind of knock on them for the three-point shooting. The reality is they're like a team full of players. I guess I would just say I would look at this team like the 2024 Celtics rather than the Celtics of the last 5 years as one big thing, because this is the first year that Joe Mazzulla had an assistant coaching staff that's his. This is the first year they've had Drew Holiday. Like, there's a lot of things about this iteration that makes it different from previous ones, and I would just say not to look at the lack of success or kind of the falling short from the last 5 seasons as a reflection of what this current team is capable of.
Is it fair for me to say that this is going to be the best opportunity? When you look at what they faced with the Heat injuries, Cavaliers injuries, it really has been served up on a silver platter, it feels like, when you look at the path they've had to get to this point. It felt like it had to at least be an NBA Finals appearance for them. If this team doesn't get across the finish line, do you envision wholesale changes, a look that says they can't win with Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that they need a more veteran head coach, somebody other than Joe Mazzulla? Or do you think this thing stays pat no matter what happens in this NBA Finals?
I think it stays pat regardless of the outcome of the finals. And that's because I think if you make it to the finals, and I don't think they're going to, I think if they lose, it would probably be a 6 or 7 game series. You don't look at that as like you had no chance and this duo can't win together, because this duo made the finals 2 out of 3 years. It's really hard to get to that point. So that's my perspective. I also don't think you switch coaches when you've had 3 coaches in 3 years. I think you want some continuity, and everything that I've heard, everything that I've sensed is that the front office is totally bought in on Joe Mazzulla, as are the players. But to just your point about kind of the silver platter and how easy this finals run has been, I would just highlight that the Celtics also had like a 12 game lead in the conference the entire season. So regardless of what would have happened with injuries, like there was no reason to think that they were going to get challenged by Indiana or Cleveland or Miami. Like they dominated all of those teams in the standings all season. They got the number 1 seed, and it was such a bizarre way because for the last few months they were kind of just resting guys and rotating guys. Like it was very unusual, and so they were going to coast to the finals.
I gotta say though, the one concern I would have from an outside perspective, and I know Joe Mazzulla has tried to address this layoff is interminable. And you've got the Mavericks that, we're playing a much more heated sort of series. They're much more within the flow of things. There's a much shorter layoff for them, 3 or 4 days, whatever it may be. How great is the concern in Boston about this layoff and how it may impact this team, where they're going in against a really good Mavericks team? Forget what the regular season record says. Second half of the year, here in the playoffs, this Mavericks team is balling.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a concern. I mean, there's always the natural question around like rest versus rust and what do you prefer? And I think if you polled the team, different people would have different answers on what's the preferred outcome. But the reality is this is the 4th time they've done this. They waited for their play-in opponent while that opponent battled. They waited for their second round opponent from a game 7, third round opponent from a game 7. So like they are very used to being in this position, and that benefits them. It's not the first time that they've had an extended period of time off. And Dallas is in a pretty similar situation. I mean, they're going to end up having like a week off too. And honestly, I think a lot of people wished the Mavericks had an even longer series because they view this rest as a benefit. I mean, that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if they came out a little bit flat in game 1. But they've been practicing every day. They're having very intense practices. Joe talked about like all the extra things that you have to do to keep kind of the competitive part going, not just like the physical well-being. So I think that they have experience doing this. I don't foresee this being a major indicator of what happens in the finals.
I've got 45 seconds left in this segment with you real quick here. Stopping Kyrie, stopping Luka. I mean, what is the answer for them defensively in this series?
I don't think you can stop them. That's the first thing I'd say. And Joe Mazzulla said that at practice this week. Pretty much every player we asked about it said that this week. I think you try to make them more scores and try to limit their playmaking, because what's made Dallas so formidable this postseason run has been the other guys. That's been the X factor to me. So if you can contain the rim, the lobs and kind of Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively and all those guys, that would be the priority for me. And then also obviously, make it as hard as possible for Luka and Kyrie with guys like Jalen and Drew and Derek.
Noa Dalzell, fantastic work on the Celtics. We're going to have you back here in a few minutes to talk about the WNBA, and in particular the Connecticut Sun, who are playing fantastic basketball. They're unbeaten right now. Much more to do on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. We're taking it to Major League Baseball on Sports Wrap. Noa Dalzell will return and join us in about 10 minutes. Get her thoughts on the WNBA as somebody who actually covers the league, isn't just dropping in because Caitlin Clark's there. So she's got a lot to say about what the Connecticut Sun are doing right now. They are undefeated. And the whole Caitlin Clark coverage. We'll get her thoughts on that as well. But let's do some baseball, Sam Yarnell. And if we're going to talk about, look, I know everybody's going to say this is Paige being, biased towards the Yankees and this and that. You can nod your head all you damn want. But here's the bottom line. They're 42-19. They went 7-2 on this West Coast trip. And Juan Soto is mashing. Woo! Yankees come back down 5-3 in the ninth yesterday, hang up a 4 spot on the fireballing Giants closer, who I don't know why they had him in after it was 7-5. But anyway, Soto hits a huge home run in the ninth to propel the Yankees. Aaron Judge has a huge weekend back in his old stomping grounds, his hometown area. Giants fans are crying in their beer because they're saying, why didn't we pay him $500 million? He didn't want to play for you. He never wanted to play for you. It was all a ploy to get more money from the Yankees. And I'm tired of people saying this, Sam, that the Giants dropped the ball not getting Aaron Judge. They did everything they could to get him. And they've signed everybody else that they could possibly get. Ohtani wasn't coming to play for you. Judge wasn't coming to play for you. They went and got everybody else. They go and get Blake Snell. He can't pitch more than 4 innings. What do you want the Giants to do? I mean, really, what do you want the Giants to do?
Here's the problem with the Giants, and we'll get to the Yankees in a second. The problem with the Giants is the way the fans are upset because they have an expectation of the dynastic Giants, which is fine, cool, great. The reality of the situation is that that managerial group has since left. And what was successful under that managerial group was homegrown talent who you maximize to their absolute potential, and you have franchise players who you bring in pieces around. Excuse me. The Giants are not in a place to do that now, right? You thought it would be with Casey Schmidt. Nah, sorry, not going to happen. You thought it'd be with Joey Bart.
Patrick Bailey.
He's in Pittsburgh now.
Yeah.
The San Francisco Giants have tried to, under their new ownership group, operate under the philosophy of the Los Angeles Dodgers or the actually not the Atlanta Braves, the Los Angeles Dodgers, these other teams that, or the New York Yankees, these teams that just buy everybody they can and like half of them stick, and they just have the cash flow to deal with the ones that don't. The San Francisco Giants clearly haven't established that cash flow yet and haven't established that role in Major League Baseball. So they're not going to be successful trying to play a game that their organization from the top down is not built for. Now to the Yankees, the team with the smallest divisional lead in all of baseball. That's right. Of the 6 division leaders, the Yankees' lead over the team in second place in their division is the smallest.
Got to be frustrating. It's got to be frustrating for them.
If you put the Yankees, and the other thing that's frustrating is that they probably understand that there's still as much credit and credibility as they're gaining, and press and media attention and narrative surrounding them. And as much as we have to come on this show 3 times a week and talk about this team, they're not the best team in baseball
They
right
are
now.
They are right now. They are right now. They're the best team in baseball right now.
The Philadelphia Phillies are 100. If you put the Philadelphia Phillies in a 7-game series with the New York Yankees right now, I would take the Yankees. Or I'm sorry, I would not take the Yankees at all.
You got it.
I would
take the Yankees.
lay the game and a half with the Phillies. Everything that the Yankees are good at doing, the Phillies do just a little bit better, and the thing is, they do it in a normal ballpark. So the Yankees will continue to get their credit and so on and so forth, but we all know the National League is going to win the World Series this year because at the end of the day, you're going to have the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Braves, who last time they lost to Acuna won the World Series. There's going to be a lot of firepower in that National League, and the Yankees have separated themselves from everybody except the Orioles in the American League. So give me the National League in the World Series right now. I'd take whatever price if any book is out there offering it. If you can bet the National League to win the World Series this year, I'd take it every way you can.
Yeah, I wouldn't take anybody right now against the Yankees the way they're playing. Just can't. I mean, they're playing so well. And you know the other thing that's interesting about the Yankees right now? There's no easy outs anywhere in that lineup. Nowhere. I mean, they just and here's the other thing about this team. And it's the difference between numbers and statistics and all this stuff and actually watching a game. That rally yesterday, that rally was the result of Jose Trevino hustling on a routine double play ground ball to short in that 9th inning, hustling down the line. Gary Sanchez would have been out by 20 feet back in the day when the Yankees had Gary Sanchez. Instead, Trevino's gunning it down the line as much as Jose Trevino can, and he makes it to first and what winds up being a fielder's choice and keeps the inning going in a runner on base and a rally and pitching with runners on base and all that stuff. And then before you know it, Juan Soto's hitting one out near McCovey Cove, and the Yankees wind up getting a win. Look, I got to say, I don't think I've ever been more excited for a regular season 3-game series than I am for the Dodgers and Yankees right now. I mean, how much fun is that going to be in the Bronx? This weekend, I think. I mean, wow. Batten down the hatches. Ohtani versus Judge. Soto. Whew. I'll be locked in for that one.
And Jason, don't forget about the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, this is a team that has been just as good as the Baltimore Orioles over their last 30 games, 20-10, 10 games above 500. They're 12 games above 500 against teams that are better than 500 this year. The Cleveland Guardians are a team that have gotten incredibly hot over the last month, and it's paying dividends. Jose Ramirez proving himself as one of the best infielders and one of the most slept on infielders season in and season out. We never talk about this guy, and he's consistently on a Hall of Fame pace if you look at his career. So we cannot forget about the Cleveland Guardians. They are going to be a very good baseball team come postseason
and
time.
You know what this year feels like to me? It feels like last year when the Rays got off to a hot start, and as big as their start was, you looked in the rearview mirror and look who was there: the Baltimore Orioles. It's very
a good point.
It is not that dissimilar from what took place last season. We're going to be locked in with Noa Dalzell, getting to some WNBA with her, the Connecticut Sun, Caitlin Clark, and a whole bunch more on Sports Wrap. The one and only Sports Wrap continues. Glad to have you with us on this Monday. Sammy Arnell returns in 10 minutes for something to consider. Tommy Pham. Let's bring down the temperature, man. Let's bring down the temperature. Noa Dalzell returns to hang out with us. She doesn't just cover the Celtics. She covers the WNBA's Connecticut Sun, which is a pet thing of mine because I grew up in Connecticut, as many of you may know. I've had a lot of you message me saying, when am I coming back to Connecticut? I'll be visiting in August. Love the Connecticut Sun. Have followed that franchise since its inception. And they are the hottest thing going right now in the WNBA. I think they're, 8-0? Noah here to start the season. And, everybody talks about the Aces and the Liberty. And, it's a collision course. They're going to meet again. Everybody's forgetting about the Connecticut Sun. And this team is a perennial powerhouse every year. They are undefeated, and while there's so much talk around Caitlin Clark, can't forget about what the Sun are doing so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Connecticut Sun, they're 8-0. It's, I think, only 7 teams in WNBA history have started like that.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask what the best start ever was, I'm not sure what it is.
I'm not sure what the best start ever was, but I will say that the most kind of exciting part of watching the Sun right now is I don't think they're playing anywhere near their best basketball, and they're still 8-0. And we talked to head coach Stephanie White about this yesterday after they pulled off their eighth consecutive win, and she said, sometimes in the locker room it feels more like we're 0-7 than 7-0, just because people have such a high standard of the level of basketball that they want to play. They haven't been shooting particularly well either, and so that's going to probably trend up. And even so, they're just finding ways to pull out wins. And so I think they're totally being overlooked. Part of it is just where they're located, Mohegan Sun Arena. It's not a major sports market. They don't have any rookies actually, so they didn't benefit from the kind of hype of the 2024 draft class. But they have like a bunch of WNBA legends and some of the best players in the game that I think people need to just learn their names and learn their basketball.
13-0, by the way, is the record. The Minnesota Lynx in 2016 accomplished that. I want to get your thoughts on Caitlin Clark because look, you probably saw her opening night against the Sun, so you were probably there with all the fever, literally pun intended, that came with her arrival into the WNBA. What's your sense watching it, having at least gotten to see a glimpse of it up close and in person, and watching from afar, both the coverage of her and sort of the league and how that's all intertwined, and the way players are treating her. You know, I've had people come on here and tell me, no, there's much ado about nothing. There isn't this animus or petty jealousy. But there's too many signs out there for me, and the way she's being treated physically on the court, little comments that are being made here and there. We saw what happened with the Chicago Sky. As somebody who's observed the league both pre-Caitlin Clark and now post-Caitlin Clark, what do you see?
Yeah, it's hard to. This is
big
such a
sigh. See, I see
Yeah.
it. Exhale. Go ahead.
So here's what I'd say. I think there's a little bit of truth in everything. And that's the problem. I think everybody wants to be so black and white about their perspective about this. There's no animosity, there's no resentment, or she's being targeted or whatever. I thought the play the other night where she got pushed by Carter on the Sky, I didn't think it was that egregious. I watch a lot of basketball. I've played a lot of basketball. It was a dirty play. There are dirty plays all the time. I don't know why it became this like national news story that she's getting assaulted on a basketball court. That's just my thought on that particular play. I think right now everybody recognizes that if you talk about Caitlin Clark and you talk about, the drama around her, you'll get clicks and you'll get views. Whereas if you talk about who's actually playing well in the WNBA, you don't. And I have a weekly WNBA column, and I've learned this myself, that that's, the keywords, the buzzwords is what draws attention. And so I think a lot of media is like parachuting in right now to talk about this league, and they're not really talking about the league. They're just talking about her and whether she's struggling or whether she's playing well. And at the same time, like if you ask them to look at the list of the top 10 scorers in the league right now, they probably wouldn't even know 5 of them. And so there is just a distance right now that needs to be made up between like actual coverage of the WNBA and coverage around like this one player that's super limited. That's not even talking about like the physical side or the adjustment side. Because anybody that really has followed would have been able to tell you that this was going to happen. Like she was going to struggle in her adjustment the same way that Kelsey Plum and Sabrina Ionescu and other shooting elite guards did. It took them a couple years.
I'd hardly say she's struggling with the adjustment, by the way, though. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I know yesterday she only had 3 points, but I mean, from a numbers standpoint, she's posting numbers. Yes, some of them are turnovers, but she's posting numbers. Here's the thing to me. And I understand what you're saying, but the reality is this. On Saturday at Barclays Center, the Liberty had 9,567. The next day, Caitlin Clark's there's 17,000 people in the stands. So that's why you have people parachuting in, because there is a discernible difference between no Caitlin Clark, pre-Caitlin Clark, and where the league is now. Am I being unfair?
So here's the thing. I'll just say personally, I love watching her play. I grew up playing basketball. I'm a three-point shooter. I think three-point shooting is the most exciting form of basketball to watch. To me, like, I'm all in on the hype. I also think that the media needs to think about the role that they're playing in that outcome, because what came first? Her being a really good basketball player that's like super fun to watch, or the media literally covering her every move? It's probably a little bit of both, but there are other players that could have gotten people this excited.
Maya Moore! I will say from day one, I thought Maya Moore, and I got to go, but I thought Maya Moore was going to be this impactful. I thought she was potentially the Derek Jeter of the WNBA. And she walked away from the game early, so we never really got a chance to find that out. And I don't even think she got enough coverage, which is a whole nother topic, because I thought she was a truly special player. Noa Dalzell, I'm out of time, and I regret that. We're going to have you back on, though, I promise you. Thank you. We're coming back with more Sports Wrap on this Monday. All right, let's keep it moving on this Monday edition of the show. Odds and ends right around the corner. Got a lot to jam in these final couple of segments. But let's take a moment for something to consider, Sam Yarnell. Or as I like to say, something to consider. What are we thinking, Tommy Pham? What are we doing? Like, what is going on? Tommy Pham's got a lot of built-up anger. He needs to go to, like, Rageaholics Anonymous. Whew. So here's the play yesterday, courtesy of our friends at NBC Sports Chicago. Tommy Pham slides into home plate. Take a look at that again. He is way out of the baseline. He is initiating the contact with the catcher. He could have gone around him. Catcher wasn't blocking home plate. Contreras. He slides, like, almost cleats up into Contreras. Let's just be honest about it. It was a dirty play. And Contreras makes the catch, the slide, the tag. He's out. Great. And then Contreras talks a little junk. And we live in that era of baseball now with pitchers showboating, hitters showboating. That's the era of baseball we're in, like it or not. And Tommy Pham is very much a part of that era. So he slides in. All hell breaks loose. Here's how it sounded on NBC Sports Chicago with the unhinged Jason Benetti. Take a listen.
Here's the throw to the plate. And he's out. And Contreras is barking at him. Tommy Pham's barking back. He's not backing down. He doesn't like that. And now home plate umpire Edwin Jimenez has to hold back Pham. Nah, we ain't taking that. We ain't taking that from the Brewers. I don't care how many L's we got this year. We ain't taking that.
Really, Jason Benetti? Really? Really? The guy who was probably picked last on his kickball team in elementary school. Really, Jason Benetti? We're not taking that. We're? Because when the bench is clear, you're going to run down from your little perch in the press box? Really, Jason Benetti? As bad as the Pham stuff was, as somebody who's done play-by-play for professional baseball, I did AA. Independent ball in the Atlantic League. Go Newark Bears. R.I.P. As somebody who's done some play-by-play, you just don't do certain things. Could you imagine Vin Scully or John Sterling or Ernie Harwell or any of the legendary great baseball play-by-play guys saying, we're not taking that. I don't care how many L's we have. Like, really, Jason Benetti? That dude owes the audience an apology. Seriously. Jason Benetti owes his audience an apology for how unprofessionally he carried himself in that play-by-play call. And I say that as somebody that generally has no issue with Jason Benetti. Young guy getting his opportunity to be a Major League Baseball play-by-play job. There's only 32 of these jobs. I mean, it's a great gig. But you can't behave that way as a play-by-play guy. Now to Tommy Pham, Sam Yarnell. You saw the play. I mean, I don't have any problem with the way Contreras reacted. It was a dirty slide. He went well out of the baseline.
All right, so I don't think it was, so I'm going to move past that part. But the William Contreras thing. William Contreras very clearly, in this instance, let his hot bat get to his head, and that's no knock on him. He has been a great hitter this year. William Contreras has been a very good hitter this year. He has been, at the same time, a bottom 6 catcher defensively in baseball. He made a good play against the worst team in baseball. At home, William Contreras, you have had more opportunities than any player in Major League Baseball to practice that exact play in that exact situation. William Contreras, again, the numbers show you are a bottom 6 catcher defensively in baseball. You need to understand your place. And I think that's what Tommy Pham was the most upset about. William Contreras cannot get up from making that tag and do what he does. It's even in the day and age of bat flips, that's so much different than a bat flip. That's like bat flipping against a closer that's going to get DFA'd the next day on the Miami Marlins.
He's pumped up.
In
the guy
the
came
bottom
in.
of the 7th of a 6-0 game. Like, it just doesn't happen. William Contreras, it's okay. You can come out and admit it because, again, he has been the probably best, maybe second best. Shea Langoliers has had a great season at the dish, but a top 5 catcher at the plate. in baseball. But when you're a bottom 5 defensive catcher, I don't care if you backflip and make that play. You can't do that. And Tommy Pham understood that.
Real quick, this was Tommy Pham postgame. Watch.
1-run ball game, close play at the plate. And actually, it wasn't even close. It was a shallow fly ball to left field. You would expect the left fielder to throw the base runner out on that play, but the situation of the game, third base coach sends you got to go. I'm nailed out at home by a mile. I'm going to the dugout, and then I hear the tough guy with all the hoorah. So I'll never start anything, but I'll be prepared to finish it. There's a reason why I do all kinds of fighting in the off season, because I'm prepared to fuck somebody up. So.
Just about says it all, doesn't it? Odds and ends are next. All right. Just about time to wrap things up on this Monday. Don't forget, check out the podcast of the show. If you can't watch every episode on television, you can listen or watch through the podcast, available on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, you name it. Lots of ways to take part. All right, Sam Yarnell, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. The end of the waiting for Justin Jefferson. Man's getting paid. What's it, 4 years, 140 million? I don't know. It's like 35 million a year for Justin Jefferson. He's getting paid. It is well deserved. And now the T. Higgins and oh God, name's escaping me.
Jamar
Cowboys.
Chase.
No, the Cowboys. Cowboys are
CeeDee Lamb.
Thank you, CeeDee Lamb. It's old age, folks. You'll be there one day too. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other receivers that see the market get set higher now. Now, they're not going to get that kind of money, and nor should they. CeeDee Lamb, that includes you. Although Jerry might be tempted, loves his receivers. I mean, look, congrats to Justin Jefferson. There's not much to say. He's one of the best receivers, if not the very best receiver in the game. He deserves to get paid.
I mean, this is a huge development, Jason. Justin Jefferson putting his stock back into the Minnesota Vikings after we heard discussions upon discussions about him potentially being out, him being a free agent after this season, us expecting him to reset the wide receiver market in this coming offseason.
I never thought he was going to leave.
See,
that's the difference between you and me. I never thought he was going to leave. Maybe
now
that's
we have
why.
to wait for Jamar Chase to do that in 2 years. The Vikings said that they got a lot of calls and considered offers on him from multiple teams before they signed him to this record extension. And I mean, yeah, now he's the highest paid non-quarterback
ever
in NFL history. This is really cool. Congratulations to Justin Jefferson. I cannot believe personally that he put stock in J.J. McCarthy in an offense that provenly failed him last year when Kirk Cousins went down. But hey, that's not me. So go ahead, brother. Hey, if you wanted to go Kirk Cousins, and they spent a lot of time together, maybe Kirk taught him a thing or two. All-time bag securer. Yeah. Because we know that NFC North is going to be very interesting for years to come, especially with how good the Lions look.
Yeah, I agree. And look, maybe he just likes the setup there. Head coach, offensive coordinator. Maybe he just likes
small media market. Doesn't get a lot of attention when he doesn't succeed.
Absolutely, and I think that could have a lot to do with it. Yuka Sasso, one of only 2 players to finish the Women's U.S. Open in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Amish country, by the way. Hello to the Amish. Oh, wait, you're not watching. You don't have televisions. One of the cheap shot. I actually watched the end of the U.S. Women's Open on Sunday, and Sasso was very impressive. Her second major, I believe her second, I don't know if she won the U.S. Open the first time too, but fantastic performance by Sasso. She closes that thing out, wins the Women's U.S. Open. But again, only 2 players finished under par on that course, which goes to show you, it doesn't matter if it's the men or the women, they set it up in a pretty difficult way. You know, here's the thing about women's golf, real quick, just as an aside. I was thinking about this yesterday. There isn't anybody that makes you want to watch right now. There isn't any, like,
yes, there
is not an
Nelly
electric
Korda.
Figure. Well, all right, I guess you could go Nelly Korda. I guess
but
that's
I
fair.
think on that subject, Jason, like the Nelly Korda 10 in this tournament feels so much more normal when you realize that there were 2 players who finished all 72 holes under par. The 10 is put a little bit more into perspective. Nelly will be right back in the mix next week.
Yeah, and as much as we talk about, and I actually tweeted about this yesterday, as much as we love to talk about, oh my, the first place earnings I think was 2.4 million. I think second place was like 1.2. Andrea Lee was tied for second going into the last hole, and she bogeys the last hole. As much as we love to talk about, how much money, the prize purses and all that stuff, her bogeying the last hole cost her $500,000. Sit on that for a second. That was $500,000 bogey for Andrea Lee on the last hole yesterday. So before we all go crazy and talk about this, that, and the other, $500,000 bogey. If I lost
$500,000 with every bogey I made, I wouldn't be down that much money because I make a lot of doubles and triples.
Ah, very nice. Well done. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, Dallas, July 20th. They're going to have to push it back because Mike Tyson has ulcers. And apparently he had a flare-up on an airplane on, like within the last 6 or 7 days. He had a flare-up. They landed the plane. Medical personnel had to come on. They're going to reschedule the fight. I think it's going to be announced on Thursday. We'll have to wait and see. But Mike Tyson, Jake Paul will still happen, but it's not going to be July 20th in Dallas.
Hey, Jake Paul. Your boxing career's at a point where you're fighting a guy who's having ulcer flare-ups. Hang up the gloves, buddy. It didn't work out.
Baddest man in the planet got KO'd by ulcers. Nothing but love for you, Mike Tyson. Nothing but love for you, Sam. Thanks to Noa Dalzell. We'll see you all back here on Tuesday.